Hey guys, I'm Tyler.
I'm Thomas.
And I'm Jake. And this is A Call to Madness.
This is a comedy show where we have no idea where these topics will take us.
Whether it be history, relevance between us, or all around straight madness.
Learn with us,
Grow with us,
And laugh with us every other Saturday at noon Central Time on Spotify.
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just remember, guys,
you called,
But you only found madness.
This podcast is hosted by RPP.
If you are easily spooked, creeped, or offended, this might not be the podcast for you.
Definitely.
Okay.
Schapelle often saw horrific acts of violence inside Karabokan, such as a man having his face kicked in, and she even found a man that had hung himself. Many times, if inmates were attacked, they were not given medical care, even if they had broken bones. So a lot of times it was kind of up to other inmates to take care of them if they possibly could.
It's horrific. Schapelle mentions in several occasions how she sometimes saw the Bali bombers who were kept in the tower at the prison. They sickened her. That must have been like a really surreal moment to be like, I didn't do anything and I'm in here with them.
With them.
Yeah.
Great. One thing that often happened while she was in prison was that people began selling Schapelle out. Prison guards were letting tourists and media in for a fee. She was giving them a vast extra income. It was worth their while having her at the prison because she was lucrative to them.
Isn't that wild?
Gross.
Yeah, and
But
they
you know
take
what-
advantage for as long as they can.
Do you know what I think's actually worse than the guards taking the money for visitors being allowed in?
People paying it.
People
Fucking
paying
paying
it.
it, going, oh, like imagine if you and I went to Bali now and we wanted to go and we're like, oh, we'll just pay it to go. Why are you going in there?
Yeah, what do you,
Like, I just
what do you
think
want to
it's-
see?
I would only.
I just think
go
I would
in
maybe go in
there.
to check on them.
I would bring her some
Right,
things.
right. That's what I mean.
some
For
nice
good.
shampoo.
Yeah,
or
for good.
Some
not
nice
for
toothpaste.
evil. Yeah,
That's
not
what I-
like a dance monkey.
I think probably
Yeah,
a lot of people
yeah.
probably would have gone
I
in just to
hope
take
so.
photos.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
Treating people like animals.
And there's
in a
nowhere for her to
cage.
go.
Yeah.
No.
She's just sitting there.
Can't escape.
Because she does call it a cage, doesn't she? That's all she calls it, her cell. She just constantly refers to the cage.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think it's even indoors. It's got a roof and everything, but I think the one side of it is just literally outdoors facing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Ridiculous.
So Schapelle receives letters of support and sometimes even abuse by the hundreds. People send her gifts and useful things that she can use in prison. Everything in prison must be sourced by the prisoners or they are left with next to nothing. Groceries are bought in by family and friends, and Schapelle shares her things with the other girls, but they still steal from her. So they will have like little cookers, like you know, and people will bring in vegetables and things for them to cook because apparently the food at the prison is so bad that your only option is to try to provide for yourself if you possibly can.
Which again is like such a wild thing for a prison because that's usually quite the opposite. You're not meant to bring things in.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the terrible legal team. Getting into that, it seems that Schapelle had a legal team made up of Australian and Indonesian representatives, and they were basically a mess. Often emotional wrecks in court and not seeming to want to stand up for what was in her best interests.
Can I say,
Go for
being that I've been in a few legal situations and having top legal people, and I would still get frustrated sometimes by their lack or, you know, their lack of gusto or
Focus.
things like that. So I wouldn't want to even dare imagine what this was like. This would have just been, you might as well have just not even been there.
Yeah.
You know, it's awful.
So frustrating.
Yeah, may as well represent yourself. So this is why it's such a great thing for Schapelle when Australian millionaire Ron Bakir steps in to help with the legal team, bringing his lawyer Robin Tampo. Ron Bakir is known for making money in mobile phones, and his involvement with Schapelle's case is at first fantastic, and she's very grateful. But I think that he saw her as a future investment for book deals and movie deals. He was not helping her out of the goodness of his heart.
What? A millionaire not doing something out of the kindness of his heart?
What?
Oh my God.
I think that he was kind of like one of those sort of TV personality guys, like you saw, like, you know, Ken Bruce has gone mad and
Absolutely.
sort of
Because I think
crazy-
there was actually Crazy John.
Crazy John.
Crazy John. And I think this guy came along and named himself Crazy Ron. And
Right.
Lame.
Lame.
Yeah, just like, you know,
He's like the
crappy-
Temu version of Crazy John.
The Wish version. Lame.
Yeah.
So one main annoyance to Schapelle is that her lawyer, Lily, she's so irritating. She starts a flirtationship with Ron, which seems to cloud her concentration. And she would have these conversations with Schapelle like, do you think he likes me? And blah, 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 blah. And I think he might like you and things like that. And Chappelle's like, could you focus on my
Right.
freedom, please?
Yeah, I want to go home.
So Lily would text Ron while in court and would rarely ask questions or raise objections. So she wasn't forceful. She didn't really advocate for Schapelle at all.
She didn't do
Do you
her
think
job.
she was told not to?
I was just thinking that.
Do you think she was because okay, let's have a look at this here. You've got you predominantly Muslim country, right? They've intercepted an Australian allegedly with a bunch of narcotics. They all hate her. Why was she even allowed a lawyer? It was like interesting, but I think they would have just had to give her one, like a token lawyer. So it looked to everyone outside of Indonesia, they were giving her
A fair go.
a fair go, but really,
Well,
she
I was more thinking, what if Ron told her to drag it out because
For more money?
for
Well-
more story.
absolutely.
That
Yes.
could have also been part of it. I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah.
Well, if it was
Because-
for more story, because she doesn't push for evidence to be tested or anything like that. So you would think that he would want her to go in and stir up some drama.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, maybe she just because that's what I was going. All those things being said, imagine then volunteering to go and be her lawyer.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't look at you too fondly anymore, would they? They'd
Yeah.
almost look at you as like it's an act of treason against their country. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I'm just wondering.
Lily was
yeah.
Australian though.
Oh, was she?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure she was Australian.
Really?
I literally just.
Maybe she. Maybe
I
she
don't
wasn't.
know. No.
Because she wasn't consulate approved. So
No.
maybe she was Indonesian.
Seasoned legal figure in Bali's criminal court. So
She's Indonesian.
she's in
Right.
okay,
Indonesian.
right.
But it is a good point. And yeah, it sounds like, she's probably doing it because she had to. And it did say she took it on a Friday afternoon when everyone else was like done for the day or the week.
So Lily seemed preoccupied with her social life outside that case rather than pushing for justice for Schapelle. She was clearly in over her head in Schapelle's estimation, and although the Corby family had paid a lot of money for her services, she was not coming in with the results.
Yeah. Schapelle was expected to attend weekly hearings related to her case, and she would have to wait in a crowded, hot holding cell filled with cigarette smoke stinging her eyes. Her family held signs in the courtroom that read, Corby Tidak Basala?
Tidak?
Tidak Basala.
Basala. Corby is not guilty, and now I don't want to attempt to slander this word.
Babaskan.
Babaskan Corby, free Corby. All right. She went into she went into the courtroom. The bag of weed on display, as usual, was visually becoming smaller and smaller. Every time she saw it, the bag had less and less inside it, and she knew it had been completely contaminated, useless for any kind of forensic testing now. Every man and his dog had put a hand or paw on it and inside it. Any evidence to help her case was long gone. I can't imagine how heartbreaking that must have been, just to be like, well,
There's that.
my one chance.
My one chance. Exactly.
And you guys are ruining it. Cool.
Schapelle started to experience increasing anxiety leading up to her court dates. Psychiatrists give her sleeping pills to take before her Thursday hearings. She tests one out. So they basically said, this will make you calm down.
Yeah, this
before
will
the
help
case.
you.
Yeah. She tests one out a few days before, and within 10 minutes, she is crawling on the ground towards her mattress. There was no way she can take these pills before court.
Yeah, very sly.
Yeah. Because that would make her look really bad.
Absolutely.
Like, he's a drug
Like
dealer
a heroin.
and she's
Out of it.
out of it. When allowed to plead her case, Schapelle states that she is innocent and that she has no knowledge of how the marijuana got into her boogie board bag, and that her only mistake was not putting a lock on her luggage. She also claims that there is a known problem with baggage handlers in Australia, and that if they had compared the weight of her luggage when she left Australia with the weight it came into Bali, they would have found that there would have been a 4 kilo discrepancy.
Surely that's why we weigh everything now and there's
Yeah.
scales everywhere. Like that's,
Well, that's why we take fingerprints. That's why we DNA test marijuana. That's why we do a lot of things. But the thing is, the authorities in Indonesia were just like, well, why would we do that? You're
It's not
guilty. You're
CSI
clearly
Bali.
guilty." Well,
Yeah.
No.
it'd make us look stupid if you weren't guilty at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
fair. She also highlights that Balinese investigators refused and still refuse to fingerprint the bag of weed, inside or out, and that she was an innocent victim of drug smuggling network, or a drug smuggling network. She denies being involved with any kind of drug smuggling operation. Finally, she declares that her love of Bali would never lead to her committing such a crime and create problems for any of its people, and that the 8 months she has served already has been enough to teach her to lock her bag while traveling in the future. She asked the chief judge look to their God for judgment and to find compassion for her and send her home. She becomes quite religious.
She's
Yes.
very
Doesn't she?
religious.
Yeah, was she previously?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No, going to church at jail just became her lifeline, essentially.
Yeah.
Understandably, well, like what else is going to get you through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she reads out this plea to the judges, and although the court applauded, the judges didn't seem to be particularly interested. In fact, because she reads it in English and then she gives it to them. They don't even ask for it to be translated. So Schapelle was convicted on 27th of May 2005 for the importation of 4.2 kilograms of cannabis into Bali. She vehemently denies having anything to do with the drugs found in her bag. None of the witness testimonies would be taken into account by the court. She was sentenced to 20 years in Karabokan prison.
Oh my God. That's that very famous footage of her breaking down, hearing that news.
And
like,
Merck yelling out, and it was harrowing.
It's horrible. Hi everyone, this is Future Gem and this is Future Lana.
Hello.
So I wanted to drop this into the Schapelle case because after we recorded the case, my husband found something that I knew I had somewhere in a box.
So we're in a box somewhere.
I couldn't find it because, as you know, my garage is
It's
the
was it?
junkyard from
the
Labyrinth.
Labyrinth. That's
That is my
right.
actual truth. Actual truth. Sorry. Let me show you what I've been keeping in a box in my garage for 20 years.
God, please. I'm so excited. We're going to react together.
So this was the newspaper.
Oh my God.
It's actually, if we turn the lights on, you can see it's really yellow. So this is the Weekend Australian, and this is where Schapelle was sentenced. And I was so devastated. I kept it forever.
Judges show Corby no mercy.
May 28, 29, 2005. So 19 years this is. And just look how just tragic
It's awful,
she
isn't
looks.
it?
It's horrible. It's just so emotional.
And like that's the moment.
That is the moment.
The moment we all know. That is horrific. I can't believe you kept this. This is like a historical piece. We've got real historical items in here.
Well, we are the Samuel Pepys of the 21st century, as you
I
know.
need a big wig. Giant wig.
Back to the episode.
In her book, Schapelle states that a teacher wrote to her after her arrest to tell her that she was the student they least expected to ever get in trouble. How fucking much would that have hurt? That like a teacher from your school was like, we're very disappointed. Like, just stop, okay? Anyway, sorry.
It depends how they said it. Like, they could,
Yeah,
they
they
could have
just
said, I
said,
can't believe this
This
has
has happened to you. You're
Yeah.
such a good kid. This
Yeah.
is awful. Yeah. I remember what I was going to say now. Sorry. Just because we did glance over it, I know we mentioned the baggage handlers, but there was also another prisoner, and I remember this too in the news. Do you remember the prisoner? And his name was John Ford, and
Yep.
he was in an Australian prison, and he had said to authorities, this girl is innocent. I have been in a cell next to these people talking about the baggage handling going on, the drugs going
Yes.
through Sydney Airport.
That's right.
And they had been joking about how it had somehow something had gone wrong that day, and they were laughing about this girl now that's in.
Oh my God.
So he was flown over and testified. But actually said this is what's happened. So there was a couple little things in her favour.
Yeah.
But they just weren't having a bar of it. But
bar
then
of
what
it.
happened to him?
And
Didn't
it was
something
hard.
happen to him?
Yeah, he ended up getting stabbed or something.
He accidentally died in prison too. It's there's a lot to it. Like, people should really read.
Yeah.
Read
The
the
book.
book.
Read the book.
Read the book. It's
Really
actually
interesting.
Sorry,
a
darling.
really
No,
interesting
you're
book.
okay.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because that just made me angry. It's just like, he's literally telling you,
Yep.
you've spent the money to fly him over, you want to hear him, and you're still like, nah,
It's
not good enough.
frustrating when it's so clear this has nothing to do with bringing in a bag of weed.
Absolutely.
Like, it's nothing to do with
It's bigger than that now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when getting this letter from a teacher, Schapelle also says, I was good, but I wasn't perfect. In high school, for instance, I did have the occasional beer or puff on a cigarette, despite mum being strictly against it. And like many teenagers, I tried smoking marijuana. It's hard for me to write about this because of what dope has done to my life and the warped significance it may hold in someone's mind. But I feel like I shouldn't have to hide it. A bit of teenage experimentation doesn't make me guilty of smuggling marijuana 10 or so years later. I mean, she's probably just empathizing as any person would. It's like, I was a teenager, I did this, but
Right.
it doesn't mean that I'm a
Right.
drug dealer.
Absolutely.
She must have had so many opportunities to just talk about anything and everything,
Right.
trying to back herself. Yeah.
So Schapelle and Merck decide they no longer wanted the services of Rong Bakia, Robin, Lily, and Vasu. So Vasu is Lily's apparent assistant. They never quite figure out who Vasu is.
Or what he does.
Because he's got all these business cards that say property developer,
Engineer,
designer,
yeah.
engineer. So he's kind of there in the team the entire time. No one actually knows who Vasu really is.
To say, I need the confidence of Vasu. I can do
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, right before that sentencing, Ron had been on the phone to her, to Schapelle,
Okay.
saying, you're going to get acquitted tomorrow. It's going to be all over. You're going to come home. So when you think what you've been
so
through, then you've got
mean.
someone telling you that in your ear, and then it doesn't happen,
And you get 20 years.
and you get 20 years.
That's
That's
heartbreaking.
just beyond fathomable.
For
you know?
that guy to be her last shred of hope.
Yeah, I
with all
hate that
this.
guy. I hate Ron Bakia.
Yeah.
What
Wanker.
a joke.
So after she gets the 20 years, essentially her legal team has failed her. The only worst thing that they could have done is get her the death penalty.
Right.
But, you know, at the way she's going, 20 years in Hotel K
Is
practically
the death penalty.
is the death penalty.
You'd almost want to be shot.
Right.
Actually, in again one of the interviews, it must have been just before she went into Hotel K with Liz. She goes, "What's the point? Like, whether it's the life or 20 years, I'm going to be 50. I can't have
Yes.
children.
Yeah.
What is the point?"
Yeah.
And I just went, "Oh my!" Like my
Yeah.
heart broke for her because you can
Yeah.
see it in her eyes. It's
Because when you're 22 or however old she was, 50 is like being 100.
yeah.
And 44 and 50 is 100 still. Still, babe.
Yeah, that's it.
So after all this has happened, they tell Ron, you know, we don't want you on the team anymore.
Shove off.
Whatever. And he asks Schapelle to pay him $500,000. And she's like, cool, here it is. It's right in my mattress.
Yeah.
Along with a toad.
Piece of shit.
Sends him a worm.
Have some worms, yeah.
And this is the thing. So he thought he was investing in a huge media opportunity, and he completely abandons Schapelle after her conviction because he's thrown his money in and the gamble hasn't worked, and he's like, fine.
Yeah.
Stuff
I'll get some money back.
So in October 2005, after appeal, Bali's High Court reduced Schapelle's sentence to 15 years. But the news is of little comfort. She still has a long time to go.
So journalists would visit her in the prison and sell the story of their visits to magazines. Some of the stories have not been substantiated.
Yeah.
So I think with it being so open, they can literally just walk
Fake
up.
news.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Fake
Clickbait.
news. Clickbait, yes.
Yeah, that's it. For example, there are rumors circulated in tabloids of her falling pregnant in prison, to which she responds in her book, "To be pregnant in a dump like this, no thank you." I remember that as a kid. I remember that rumor circulating, and I was like,
I remember
wow.
people saying she was pregnant.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, this poor lady. As she became an active Christian, others of the faith would visit her, but not all were of good intentions. Journalists would pay guards to let them in, and they could see her cell, stand right outside, and even come into the church. They would write stories afterwards that would make Schapelle look like she was having a nice time in prison. Eventually, she doesn't even go to the chapel, preferring to pray in her cell. She doesn't feel safe anywhere and trusts no one.
Can we just go back to the rumours for a second?
Sure.
Which is what I was
Understandably.
asking earlier on. One of the rumours she addresses very early in the book, which kind of made me change my mind about things. And she says, of all the rumours written about me, the most hurtful one was accusing my father of being a drug smuggler. And I always thought maybe he had something to do with it.
A lot of people did. A lot
then
of
when I
people
read
were
that-
like, oh, it's to do with the dad.
Yeah, and then when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, right. So, yeah, so
Sorry.
there's... Hey?
Sorry, Schapelle.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
And there was one woman that came into the prison and she had all these groceries for her and she wanted to write about her or something. And then when Schapelle said she wasn't interested, I think she was one of these Christians.
with
She
the
left
half-empty
bag,
shampoo bottles and
it was
shit.
just like empty bottles and half-empty bottles of
my
useless
God.
crap.
Right. Very Christianly of you.
I was going to say, it's so gaudy.
Yeah.
Journalists would also take secret photos and videos. Even in prison, she would have to run from paparazzi. At one point, she tried to climb over the prison gate and is wrestled back inside with photographers running after her. She yells at one of them, "What are you looking at? Who are you?" And it turned out that the guy that she'd yelled at was actually a human rights activist who had brought a camera crew in to show the people the awful conditions that she was living in. And it's at this point she actually starts to mentally fall apart.
So fights were becoming normal in prison, and she'd even gotten into a couple herself. At the end of the book, in her acknowledgements, she even says she is not sorry for slapping a woman in prison at one point. Fair. Violence at now which pronunciation have we gone with?
Whichever one you think.
Hotel K.
Hotel K.
Is at once shocking and commonplace. So violence is very, very common at Hotel K, and Schapelle begins to lose her mind. I can't imagine being in a prison and still having to escape, like people chasing after you.
It's such a juxtaposition, isn't it? Schapelle briefly befriended notorious Bali 9 convict Renee Lawrence. You know, obviously, Renee Lawrence. She's got
If we ever
red
do a Bali
hair.
9, I'm in.
Okay, all right. So Schapelle would help Renee doing her hair and makeup for court. Renee is known to, she's a little bit tomboyish, I guess you could say, and being both Australian, they probably, you know, sparked up a bit of an alliance, I suppose.
Someone to relate to, I
Yeah.
guess.
She would also be brought out of her cell to help calm Renee when she had violent outbursts fueled by anger and anxiety. So Renee would have these full-on meltdowns, like angry meltdowns, and they'd be like, "Schapelle, can you come in and sort this out?"
Wow.
On arrival at Hotel K, Renee punched a wall so hard she broke her hand. Renee becomes increasingly violent and manipulative, and Schapelle distances herself from Renee. Soon after this, Schapelle cuts her hair off. Now, in the book, can you remember she said why she cut her hair off?
Wasn't it just to free herself?
I think it
metaphorically.
I think it was more of a spiritual. It wasn't
Yeah.
like a Britney moment.
No.
Yeah.
I think it was more of a spiritual moment for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
However, when her dad dies of cancer on 18th of January 2008, she is devastated. Her mental health takes a massive turn for the worse.
Already convinced that there are secret clues hidden around her that will help with her release, Schapelle becomes obsessed with cameras and is paranoid that there is surveillance everywhere. She would stuff soap and tissues into cracks in the wall. She's convinced the birds were spying on her and that there are secret factories underground. She can't remember a lot of this time, but it appears to have gone on for 3 or so years.
Yeah, she said in this part of the book, her mum and sister helped her write this part of the book because she just can't remember a bunch of it.
Wow.
It actually began when she was at the first cell before Hotel K. She would do things like she would rip up the carpet because she thought,
Yeah.
this is a conspiracy, there's clues somewhere. All this graffiti on the wall, there's got to be clues as to why this is happening. She became sort of obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd maybe almost think the same thing.
I was going to say, I'd absolutely think the same thing. Think about how quickly her life changed. Of course, she'd be like, no one believes me.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Yeah.
Rosalie and Merck would have to look after her as best they could, and it was lucky they were allowed to visit so often. The guards were changing up Schapelle's medications, not giving her the antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills she had been prescribed during a recent 2-week visit to a police hospital. Schapelle pretends she's at the beach some days. She tries to unalive herself on at least 3 occasions, and she crawls into the attics of the prison and spies on people. This is like on a regular basis. This is like what she does now. This becomes her new normal. She also goes strictly vegetarian after having a vision of her dead father, and all she can see is the meat that he's made up of.
Yeah.
And it really traumatizes her.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was also a part in the book where she had been asked to poison another girl through her water, and she had refused.
Yes.
And she started to think, had it been... So then she said, because I refused, was someone doing it to me? And I think it was almost like a meth situation.
Oh, I didn't put that in. Remember, she actually became addicted to meth
Yeah.
for a time.
And I think it was because they'd had started drugging her water
That's
or
right.
whatever it was.
No wonder she went
No wonder she's
insane.
crawling through the attic, babe.
Yeah, exactly. And
Like,
thinking
and
there's people spying
meat
on her.
meat men and...
Yeah.
And she was telling her family, like, I'm so skinny, I just can't put on weight.
She
I
did
just
look
am so
deathly ill.
thin.
Deathly ill there a few times.
Yeah, I think people were like secretly sort of feeding her meth, and it was literally making her go mad.
Horrendous.
And you can imagine that once they stopped, what kind of withdrawal she probably went through, especially not having her own medication.
Right.
Ridiculous. I've said ridiculous at least 20 times already. This is such a crazy
That's what
story.
we're going to call the episode.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
Her brother Michael starts to formulate an idea to try and sneak her out of the prison, but quickly gives up on the idea. It was more trouble than it was worth. Their sister Merck and her husband Wyan had agreed to act as guarantors, so if Schapelle escapes the prison, they must finish her sentence.
I did not know that.
Which I also find so wild. What the fuck? Hey, yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me to be quiet before when I started talking about this?
Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
All ties together.
So as Beck said, meanwhile, while this is happening, an Australian man named John Ford claimed that a drug smuggling racket had been operating in Australia among airport staff during the time Schapelle had been arrested. The claims were not without compelling evidence. Back in October of 2004, Schapelle had flown from Brisbane to Sydney to get a connecting flight to Bali. And on that exact day at Sydney Airport, corrupt baggage handlers were intercepting a large shipment of cocaine weighing 9.9 kilograms.
Not faux cocaine.
No, not FOCO.
Real.
FOCO.
Classic co. The Australian Federal Police had been investigating the syndicate for at least 6 months under the name Operation Mocha, uncovering 200 kilos of cocaine being smuggled in between June and December 2004 and processed by Sydney Airport baggage handlers, the same handlers that may have moved Schapelle's bags. So who's to say that they were not processing other drugs apart from cocaine?
Yeah.
Like,
What was going on in that airport?
is it not so fucking obvious what has happened? Like, once this came up, surely they were like,
Sydney Airport has a problem.
oh, yeah. And this poor woman's been swept up. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather her go down for 20 years than admit and get the bad
Exactly.
PR.
Exactly.
She also mentions a police drug squad team called Operation Flora, which also investigated corruption and drug trafficking in Australian baggage handlers from 2003.
This is before this happened.
Yeah.
They were aware that there was a problem.
So my question is, if Indonesia really cared about drug trafficking, why didn't the Indonesian police carry out an investigation on where the weed came from?
They don't need to do that. They just go,
It's not
it's here in
about
it's in the country.
Really?
It's Indonesia.
Yeah, but there's no point in imprisoning one trafficker. Why can't you just literally cut it off at the stem? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I hear what you're saying, but I feel like they're not that committed to the cause.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Are you that committed or...
No.
I think if you, as you guys said previously, like an example being made.
Yeah.
They saw a perfect opportunity to scare the shit out of people.
Yeah.
'Cause she talks about how you can DNA test marijuana to see
Where
where
it
it
comes from.
originated.
Yeah.
Well, why not just follow it back to the source?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
did they just not
But why
care?
do they need to do that? They've got this Australian girl now
Well, I guess.
Yeah.
that's created
That's
a riot.
enough for them.
But like you say in this next part here, is it purely political? They don't want to rock the boat. I have also had people say in my recent surveys, 100% it had to do with the governments at the time. 100%.
I mean, it was such a turbulent time, no pun intended, in the early 2000s, especially airports and airport traffic.
Right.
People were probably not willing to take any risks
What do you
whatsoever.
mean a turbulent time? All I can think of in the early 2000s is like Paris, Lindsay and Britney.
Mate,
Juicy.
9/11.
9/11, babes.
Oh, soz.
2001. The you know,
That thing.
that big thing that
The
happened.
situation.
Hey, Brittany had a lot going on as well. I understand.
Paris had a lot going on.
I think there was just a lot of traumatic things
Airports
going
in-
on.
Like,
Right.
remember, like everyone
Yes,
was getting
there
their
was way
luggage
more
wrapped
security.
up.
It was
and-
really hectic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was probably, it hadn't really leveled out the level of
Yeah.
security that was needed.
Yeah.
Things were getting missed.
No one knew what was really going to happen. Yeah.
Exactly
okay.
right. And she's just one girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. It most likely politically driven. Sorry, this is me now. I'm just rambling. Okay, so a rumour of alleged photos of Schapelle and a South Australian drug dealer began to circulate in the media. A dodgy Melbourne reporter started sharing the story, claiming there were pictures in existence, but without seeing the pictures first. Classic. It turned out that the dealer had visited Schapelle in prison, as many Australians did, and they had been photographed in the grounds at Hotel K. Schapelle's mum is infuriated and spends much of her time taking legal action against the reporter. The story did them no favours. It's death by rumour, isn't it?
It really is.
So much
It
of
really
this.
is.
But anyone could have come up and said, "Hi, I'm from Australia. I brought you some food or snacks or whatever," and she could have gone, "Thank you so much." They could have been anyone.
Yeah, literally anyone could have walked up. It just
Absolutely.
so happened that someone, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah.
No.
So meanwhile, Schapelle's third appeal is coming to a conclusion with a devastating result. Her sentence has been reinstated to its original 20 years.
I forgot that happened.
Why did it happen? They just
Probably the
she went back for her
photo
hat?
story didn't
yeah.
work in her favour. But also her younger brother James came into some legal troubles of his own around this time when he was arrested and charged with the burglary of a drug dealer's home, taking money and marijuana, which he hid in a coffee jar at his mother's house. However, Schapelle still believes James had nothing to do with her arrest. I mean, we know that, he's done some other things. She still doesn't believe that he had anything to do with what happened with what was in her boogie board.
I'd be very impressed if a 16-year-old managed to get 4.2 kilos of marijuana unsuspected into a bag.
I mean, that could have been another thing as well. Like, they could have said, hey, we're not going to have any chance of detaining a 16-year-old Australian boy.
Very true.
We got to take
go
the
for
older
the next one.
Very, very true. Also, James, you fucking idiot at this
Right,
time.
right.
Like,
Idiot.
are you serious? I can only imagine how much more frustrating everything would have been.
Yeah.
A conspiracy that her dad planted the drugs in conjunction with his former neighbour is deeply hurtful to Schapelle. Schapelle is also disappointed to see the ABC claiming she and her lawyers refused DNA tests to link her bag to her father's neighbour, who allegedly ran a sophisticated commercial marijuana operation. That's a lot to consume, isn't it? In reality, she repeatedly asked for the bag's contents to be DNA tested on the 3rd of December 2004 to see where it came from. She invited them multiple times to test the drugs to see where they originated, and this did not happen.
So, like, if they tested it and it said, right, this is from Mexico or something, they'll be like, well, how did you get
How are
this?
you doing that?
Yeah. And why is it going through Australia to Bali? Why didn't it just go straight? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it would have been handy to have the DNA testing just to see if it originated at her dad's acquaintance's house, because that would have ruled him out.
Yeah, exactly. So did that happen? Was that just a rumor? Did the neighbor actually have a history?
I think. Look,
Isn't that how it started? I think there must have been something else there.
I think he might have had a couple of plants in the back room, but I don't think he was like running a sophisticated
Trafficking
operation.
situation. Oh, speaking of sophisticated weed operations, have you watched The Gentleman on Netflix?
Oh, I've seen
The
parts
British
of
one?
that. Yeah, my parents have watched it. I caught some episodes.
No, just because I don't like the director's work.
Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie. I don't like.
Really?
I hate Guy Ritchie movies.
Do you really? That's hilarious.
Yeah, I
made
hate
for
that.
us.
I hate that
Wow.
fast camera geezer.
Oh, it's actually slow AF.
I think it's because he has a whole show to be able to do that.
There's a couple of very
very
dark
self-aware.
parts in there though.
Maybe I'll
that
give
are
it a
a bit too Guy Ritchie. But the storyline's great, and the chicken at Susie Glass, she's wow, she's great.
Okay.
Yeah, she's cool.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Anyway,
I love the
Thank
time.
you,
It's
thank you.
sophisticated.
Yeah.
It does look very sophisticated, I will say.
fancy weed operation.
You can't be fancy and smoke weed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the two don't go together.
Oh,
You just don't like.
no
even all
one
these rich people
smoking
doing
it
I'm
was
like,
fancy.
Yeah, exactly.
The directors of the Bizzo are fancy.
There's nothing fancy about a bong.
No. No. Not that we would know. Anyway.
So at no point was any attempt made to find out where the drugs came from or who might have been involved. They just let
I think she
her-
even said early on, she was, I thought it would be like CSI. I thought people would come and I would get interviewed and then I would get fingerprinted and
She said this
someone
is
would
not
go
like the
collect
movies.
evidence. Yeah.
Not like the
It's not
movies.
like the shows. Yeah.
So 2 Australian QCs offered to take the appeal case pro bono. Apparently they had called Robin previously, who was Ron's lawyer, but he had refused their services, probably because being on Schapelle's legal team guaranteed them payment and later windfalls if lucrative media deals went ahead. So they didn't want anyone getting their pie,
Involved,
their
yeah.
piece
Yeah.
of their pie. They hadn't wanted anyone else getting their opportunities, even if it meant risking Schapelle's safety and freedom. But Schapelle found out about the QCs and jumped at the chance to have them.
Of course you would.
They brought a Jakarta-based lawyer to act as their Indonesian representative.
Is that his real name?
Yes.
Yep, Hotman Paris Hutapia.
Wow.
Hot Man Paris.
Hot man.
This
Paris.
guy is kind of wild, actually. He's very
Sounds
flashy.
wild.
He's very, look at my Ferrari collection. You know, this one's got an elevator so I can fit more in. He's very that.
Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just picturing him with like a sparkly jacket, like power sliding into the courtroom.
Yeah.
This shower only puts out Calvin Klein CK1. You know, like, he's that guy.
So Hotman Paris Hudapi was chosen and Schapelle and Merck liked him. According to the new lawyers, Vasu, Lily's assistant,
whatever,
counterpart
that
person, allegedly asked the Australian government for $500,000 to bribe the judges.
Wow.
Thanks for that, Lil.
Honestly, you'd only be pissed off if they refused it, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
I'd be kind of like,
Come
thanks
on,
for
guys.
trying.
Giving
You're
it a
a
go.
shit lawyer. That's all you had. That's the only thing you had left.
It was grounds to fire him. Really? Even though they hadn't done a great job for her, they couldn't understand why she would not want them back for the appeal. I wonder why.
Because you're crap.
Yeah.
You've literally given me nothing.
Terrible.
But we tried to bribe them.
We did everything we could.
could.
It's like, dude, I wash my hair with toilet water.
Right?
I gave you half a Fanta. What do you want? They were done with Lily's team, her incompetence, her lack of focus, and there was more. But wait, there's more. During the original court case, an interpreter was booked to oversee the language barrier between Schapelle and the court. On the day he was supposed to arrive, he was told the wrong court time by Lily. In his place, a woman named Eka was given the job. She was an employee of Ron, and although she could only speak conventional English...
Conversational.
Thank you. She was an employee of Ron, and...
We can only speak conversational English.
This is a little bit more lending to, was it your theory of dragging it out for longer? Because why is Ron giving her terrible counsel, terrible interpreter, thank you. That's my conversational English just stalling there for a second.
Yeah.
It's odd.
It is odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does say conversational, doesn't it? It does.
Yeah.
So it's conventional. Conventional?
You just go, oh, it does say conversational, doesn't it? So it's conventional.
No. Does that... Did you correct me? Did you correct me?
No.
She speaks conversational English, so she can speak like, where is the post office?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Did you?
I am not guilty.
Café con leche, por favor.
The weed is not mine.
Yeah, didn't do it. Thanks. And she was brought into the act as the case interpreter. If it's not clear by now.
So they screwed her. They could have had
Absolutely.
this professional interpreter come in. They could have made it easier for Schapelle and her family, and they didn't do it.
No.
Why?
Maybe they just didn't want to pay. Maybe this chick Eka is like their secretary, their admin assistant, and they're just like, now you're an interpreter.
You are now my elite employees.
Do I get a pay rise? No.
No, not at all.
So, meanwhile, her lawyers were dynamic and active, which gave Schapelle hope. Things were about to look up. In 2012, after appealing to the president for clemency on the grounds of mental health, 5 years is taken off her sentence. So Renee Lawrence, who is top dog at the prison at this point, and she hates Schapelle, she is so angry. And around this time, a conspiracy has found out that Renee has planned to kill a guard using text messages between her and another inmate. And on these grounds, she's moved to another prison. In February 2013, Schapelle is told she will be paroled in just a few days.
She had to pay $10,000 in order to get her parole, Which is that like a normal thing? I don't think so, right? Paying for parole.
I think
I'm
in
just
Indonesia.
paying for the last 10 years I've been here.
I think, yeah.
Thanks for having me. Loved it.
Thanks
Here's a
for
tip.
all the fish. Bye.
Jesus.
The media camp out at the prison and she has to stay on parole in Bali for a 3-year period. She is taken to the Sentosa Resort in Seminyak, where her family had watched her release on TV just minutes earlier. Photographers took pictures overall and helicopters circled as the family reunited for the first time ate dinner together.
Do you know
Leave them alone.
I think I might have written photographers took pictures over the wall.
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
God, you'd just want to get on a plane and go home, wouldn't you? I couldn't think of anything worse than having to stay there.
Yeah, stay there.
In that country where that's just happened to you.
Yeah,
I would I'm going home.
Having to readjust.
At least she's got her family and friends,
Yeah.
and she's also got basic stuff now,
Shampoo
like
and water.
a bathroom, shower,
Yeah.
hot
Privacy.
water,
Toilet paper.
Right?
No crazy lesbians
Yes.
attacking her.
The security guards and villa were supplied by the Channel 7 program Sunday night, so they decide to do an interview with them after Schapelle recovers for a few weeks. She is still in a very mentally damaged way from her experience and was seeking out small spaces. She would lay in an empty bath all day, or she'd curl up on top of the wardrobe.
That makes sense to me though. As someone that suffered terrible anxiety previously, I can...
You wouldn't want open spaces.
No, you
Yeah.
need to be in your little... ball.
Especially with
Safe space.
people being around you all the time for
Right.
so many years and suddenly they're gone.
Right.
And already being in this mental state.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So Women's Day publishes a picture of Schapelle and Michael drinking a beer at the villa. The Balinese government threatens that if she sells the story, she will be sent back to prison. They need the money, so it must have been difficult deciding that. Some networks wanted nothing to do with her. Why are they able to threaten that? Like,
Because they don't want Bali to look bad.
Hello.
yeah, but like, how are you? That's, I don't know what the freedom of speech rules are over in Bali.
I don't think they have
Probably not very good at all. Yeah, it just seems wild to me. I suppose, yeah, like a defamation or something. I don't know. It just, yeah, it just seems wild that that's a thing
Because
they
they didn't
can
want
do.
people to find out they did the wrong thing.
And that was like publicly displayed for everyone to see.
So even so, journalist Mike Willisey came to see Schapelle off the record and
I love
saw
Mike. Mike's
R.I.P.
lovely, right?
And he saw her fragile mental state. So instead of just interviewing her, he sat in the bath with her, drinking beer, and he talked to her about religion. They decided not to risk doing an official interview. The AFP raided the Sydney offices of Channel 7 and New Idea looking for contracts offering Schapelle money, as it had been rumoured that she would be paid $2 million. They found nothing.
Again, why is that? Would that be seen as proceeds of crime?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right.
And also rocking the boat with Bali, rocking the boat
Yeah.
with Indonesia.
Yeah, just don't want it.
Everybody seems to want to keep this quiet.
Right?
It's very odd.
Just so ironic considering they've been there the whole time.
The whole time. You've
already screwed it. Like,
yeah, everybody knows who she is. Everybody knows the situation.
Yeah.
Everybody has an opinion.
yeah, exactly. The Balinese prison guards appeared to still be in leagues with the media. Even though the prison office was an hour away, she was ordered to check in every day when other parolees only had to go once a month. She had no way of getting there unless people drive her, and every day she would be swarmed by media chasing her on bikes. The parole officers asked her questions that a tabloid may ask. Did she have a boyfriend? Was she writing a book? After the protest, they agreed to make it just one meeting per month.
So
It's ridiculous.
when I was in Bali just recently, and this just goes to speak to not the swarm, but the overwhelming feeling I would imagine going through those streets. So when I was just there, I was by myself walking through like the main shopping part of Legian, And I had my little new cowboy boots and my bag, and I was by myself. It was the first time I haven't travelled with my husband overseas. And all of a sudden there was sirens, there was like black Escalades flying by, there were police. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? I'm on this street. And you know Bali, there's noise, it's a lot.
bustling.
It's a lot. It's very bustly, right?
Yeah.
It's hot. And so this is happening, and I start to get a little bit panicky. And, you know, then armed guards have started appearing on the streets. And I thought, what is happening? This convoy of black Escalades just going by. And I see a Caucasian woman walking towards me just with her phone quite low down filming it. And I said, are you filming this? And she goes, yeah. She goes, it's the Prime Minister or the President's motor convoy. There's going to be an election tomorrow. There's actually a traveller's warning out that it could turn into riots because he needs to be reinstated by the next Prime Minister, but he doesn't want to go.
Whoa.
Which I didn't know about. And then even just walking... It just kept going. There was just sirens and motorbike police and things. And I did have to cross a certain section, which I think must have been part of the Parliament House. It was just all armed guards. I was so scared to cross it. And I said to this soldier man guard, I said, am I okay? And he's like, oh, absolutely. He's like, yeah, go. Like it was just a casual part of it. I was terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified.
Understandably.
I couldn't even fathom to think what it would be like to be swarmed in those little streets where it's already so much craziness going on. And she had that constantly for 10 years,
Yeah.
you know?
Ridiculous.
So,
Yeah. When I was in Bali last month.
yeah, just the other
Apparently
day.
we live there. And there was like a convention or some massive dinner happening at the hotel. And I asked one of the guys, like the security guys at the front of the hotel, I said, who is here? Because all those like matching really like intimidating looking black vehicles over there. They've got like gold crests on
Yes.
on the number plates. They had like emblems, and there was a whole bunch of matching ones. And he goes, "Oh, one of the heads of the army is here, and that's his security team." What?
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite
Chill
it's
out.
quite confronting. It's quite it's a lot.
Considering that doesn't really happen here in Australia. We don't really have...
It's pretty loose here.
Well, it's just not like, one, I imagine we're bigger, but two, we don't really have officials coming through the streets. We don't have military coming through the streets very often, if ever. Not often met with like something quite big like that or fearing for our lives in the streets. It's quite different. I can imagine it would have been very, very confronting.
Right.
Yeah.
So, moving into Mercedes' new rented house, Schapelle lives as if she is still in prison, keeping her environment small and doing simple things such as reading. It's hard for her to reconnect with the outside world. She begins to take small steps, like going to a quiet beach in Nusa Dua where media are not allowed. She even begins boogie boarding again, although she finds herself to be very weak and needs to regain her fitness. She is allowed around the island as long as she tells her parole officers where she is going. However, even in the quietest areas, people still recognise her. Tourists sell stories about meeting her even when she works at her sister's surf shop, and for this reason, she has to quit. The media finally find where she's living in Kuta, so she prefers to stay home and only trusts close family.
Media would publish articles saying she was imprisoned in paradise, but at the same time harass her, holding GoPros over the wall. Her brother once threw a bucket of water over the journalist on the other side.
She really can't do right.
No.
She's either, oh, you're in paradise, you're so lucky, or, you know, or they're demonising her.
Yeah. She's allowed out.
As
They
I'm sure
told
she'd
her.
come home if she was bloody allowed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was, again, one of the interviews was footage of her on the beach, and quite clearly unconsensual footage, and they just kept showing it. And I'm like, leave her alone.
Yeah.
Has she not been through enough?
She'd rather be home in Chooks.
Right?
Right? When she prepares to fly home on the 27th of May 2017, she decides to have a picture of missing boy William Tyrrell stuck to her bag. She'd been following the case and, knowing all of Australia would be watching, wanted to use the opportunity to make his image, keep his image in the news. She has a police convoy to help her get through the crowd at the airport. It's chaos. A photographer even falls off a wall on live television, and she says, I think he broke his leg.
I actually found that really interesting that she wore a picture of him. I actually thought it was more of a there's way more interest. You need to be focusing
True.
on this.
Yeah, there's actual real problems. There's a missing
stuff.
boy.
There's a missing boy, and you seem to have just forgotten all about that.
Yeah, put
yeah.
your
So I
energy
actually thought it
there.
was really smart of her.
It's
to
really
do that.
good of her to
Yeah.
do.
Because people, like journalists, networks were spending thousands sending journalists to Bali.
try and
They
catch
could
her.
be spending those resources
Looking for a pedo.
looking for a missing boy
Yeah.
who still hasn't been found.
Right?
They have a secret second flight booked, leaving the media to board the Virgin flight it was rumoured she and Merck were taking. Merck's friend helped her to organise the flight ruse, which was paid for at their own expense. She knew him because directly after the Bali bombings in 2005, she had helped the surviving members of his family. So he was like, they remained friends.
Were they in 2002?
Yeah.
The Bali bombings. They were before.
Oh my God. I said 2005. Sorry.
That's
I don't know
okay.
what I'm saying.
So fine.
So many
It was
dates
earlier.
flying around.
Yeah.
Imagine the expense of all these things because, for her family, these flights backwards and forwards, like
Lawyers, legal.
It's wild.
Yeah, trying to get people to stop talking about her. Yeah. In Australia, she's put into a white ute and told to put her head down until they got out of Brisbane traffic. She was finally home and free while all of Australia watched what they thought was her convoy in the form of 9 black Mercedes vehicles, which were donated for the cause. That's awesome.
That was very nice.
That was very nice. And also, this is so funny. I love that this is what they did. I think it's
whole
fantastic.
ruse. She
The
goes home
ruse.
in some bogan white ute
Right.
with a blanket
Right,
over
over her
her.
head.
It's brilliant. So TV shows were cancelled in favour of the live news footage. Finally at home, Merck filmed Schapelle watching the live footage of her apparently driving from the airport. The cars split off from each other and went their separate ways. Stations didn't know what to do when no Schapelle appeared. Reporters asked her on morning TV for her to reach out to them. All the while, she spends a quiet day with her family at home. I think that is possibly some of the best revenge she could have had.
So good.
I love it.
When Carl Stefanovic declares the media have been made to look like idiots, Schapelle says, no one made them look like idiots. They did that all by themselves.
Do you know what I did get from reading this? She's a very intelligent girl.
She is. Oh, yeah.
Highly
I
intelligent
like her.
girl.
Yeah. Yeah,
She actually scares me a little bit. Like, she's very smart.
Yeah, and imagine all that time to think and plan and all that
Like,
kind
the
of...
way the book's written, she's very matter of fact. She doesn't dwell too much on stuff. It's not like poor me. It's just, this is kind of how it happened. And
Yeah.
this is what I did to survive.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right.
But isn't that, again, interesting that the media made her look like a bit of a bogan bimbo kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
Australian? I mean, again, as a younger person, that was my impression. And obviously adult opinions on top of that, but she is very smart. She,
Is that the end of your reading?
That is the story of
You
Schapelle
just
Corby,
remind me
the
of
very
something.
condensed version. But I
Yeah.
highly recommend people buy her book and read the book. It's
I remember one
Amazing.
time driving through, I reckon I was driving between Narre Warren and Dandenong. I was somewhere out there late one night and I was listening to a late night radio show, and it must have been while she was still in prison because it would have been in my mid-20s. And I remember they must have been talking about her and they're like, you know what we'd love now if everyone could just beep their horn if you think Schapelle's innocent. I heard so many horns that night.
wow.
It was actually a really surreal moment in time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, swear to God. Like, it was bizarre. Yeah. So, yeah. But
There you go.
I know there's only one thing in the book where I thought maybe I did have my resolve maybe wavered the other day, and I thought, oh, maybe she did do it just once in the book.
Yes.
And it was only in this tiny section where, because when you think about that whole case and how just a shit show it was right from the start, when every prosecution witness all had their stories straight. And I thought to myself, well, how did they get that together? So then I thought, oh, maybe she did. But now I'm off that again. That was a very fleeting thought.
Yeah, I mean,
You know.
I think it sounds like everyone at the time was questioning every single thing.
Well, even if she was lying, it's a long time to hang on to your story for.
Yeah.
And not waver from it.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
That was a really well written story to condense so much into
Well done, babe.
a huge story condensed down. It was wonderful. So thank you, Gemma, for writing
Well done,
this.
Gem.
Thank you. And it would be interesting to see like a documentary series on this case, but at the same time, leave her alone.
Yeah.
Leave her alone.
Yeah.
Enough's enough. I feel like Australia does this a lot. Like we'll have these massive culture rocking situations.
Yeah.
And they just don't let it go. Like they don't see the human in the middle of this. Leave them alone.
Right.
They don't deserve more.
And if you do want a piece of Schapelle, go to her Etsy store because she makes these beautiful resin clocks. She hand makes them.
Cool.
And they're really, really nice.
I'm going to go and have a look.
I want one for Christmas.
Okay.
Right on the
Okay.
list.
Write that down for us, baby.
Yeah, like she signs them Schapelle, and they're very beachy and oceany, and they're real nice. So if you want to support her, go to her Etsy store and purchase a clock.
Yeah, I hope she can have a bit of peace now. I hope.
Yeah.
Even though we did say, look how razzed we are 20 years later.
I mean,
hope-
she was on that one reality show that I think
The
SAS. Was that for charity? I think it might have been for charity.
Yeah.
Do you know who else was on there when I was looking this up the other day? Cocaine Cassie.
Stop, really?
Yeah.
We should do her
I was
story
thinking
one
of that
day.
too, actually.
Cocaine Cassie.
Really?
So, yeah.
Chappelle wasn't on Dancing with the Stars, was she?
No, someone else said that to me the other day, but I don't think so.
don't know why I
there
thought
she
that.
is,
Yeah.
2020.
It's on,
Oh, she was?
yeah, SAS.
God, why would you do that to yourself after what you've been through?
I don't know. Maybe it was to do with charity. I don't see
Wow.
her doing that for fame at all. So
You know what she needs to go on? She needs to go on I'm a Celebrity.
no,
I feel like a lot of
That would
people...
be so triggering, dude.
A lot of people...
They'd be like, oh, all you can eat is bugs.
Oh no! I actually meant it in the way that like so many people have come back from that, and like public opinion has really like I feel like they really get behind people on there. Fev, Warnie, like I feel like people's reputations have really been cleaned up on there.
She did the ultimate get me out
Like
of
she
here.
will win. Like she will win.
she's
She will
like, this
outsmart
is
all of them.
nothing.
She's like, I can do this like twice.
She'd
Like,
look around, she'd be like, I've done this before.
I've got this.
I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want
Yeah.
this. Oh, man.
I think she'd just beat everyone and win.
Yeah, she probably
That's what
would.
I mean.
Oh, man. Well, Gemma, that was fantastic.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much.
Yeah, that was
Thanks
good.
for coming back.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Where can people find you online?
Where can they find me online? At rebeccawoodhair.com.au.
Great.
Yeah. So
Yes.
hair education,
Salon owners, get
salon
to this
owner.
website.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have books, I have free resources, I have a hair studio, I tour.
Oh, my God. What doesn't she do?
I try and get on my friends' podcasts as often as possible.
I'm sure it won't be the last.
I hope not.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I guess, how do we sign off with 3 people?
What do you usually do?
Well, I usually say until next time.
Until next time, I'll say, be creepy. And you say,
But don't be a creep.
she knows. She knows.